Hello, so I have another Ask Me Anything question from someone in my community that I'm going to read the question and then answer in this video. So Jane writes, I have two young children and I'm terrified that I will die young, and this will be such a big trauma in their lives. What if this happens and they can't cope? How would this impact the rest of their lives? I feel very stuck with this and get worried and obsessed trying to look after my own health so I don't become ill. It feels so scary and miserable. So thank you, Jane, for sending this question in. And I love this question because this is something that I have experienced personally as well. So my mind loves, or did love, and still periodically sometimes still loves to talk to me about this. And my mind story has the added layer, and again it is a story, that because my son is an only child, it would be worse for him if I died young, or if my husband died, or if both of us died. So I'm with you on this one, Jane. I've experienced this, and I've also seen something quite helpful about it, I hope. So the first thing to see about this is that it is your mind, your brain, so not you, Jane, not any one of us, but our mind, our computer brain, just trying to keep us safe and trying to keep our children safe. And this is a perfectly natural and normal response, I think, to being a parent. So keeping our children safe and secure and making sure that we're going to be there to look after them is one of the primary functions of being a parent, isn't it? You know, to keep them physically safe, to be there to look after them, to nurture them into adulthood until they're ready to leave home. You know, it's really primal. It's really one of the major functions of being a parent. And so therefore, when our mind likes to worry about this, it's because it's trying to keep our children safe. It's trying to keep us safe and it's trying to keep our children safe, but it's just going the wrong way about it. So as it looks to our mind, when this thought occurs, which comes from our mind, it looks like a threat. So it looks like a threat in the moment that's real. What if this happens? How would they cope? How can I help them? You know, how can I prevent this from happening? Because it's such a big threat to their survival, to their happiness, to their well-being. So it's just knowing, first off, that this thought that we know isn't real, it isn't happening now, you're not dead now, because you were able to write and ask me the question, and when that thought occurs to me, I'm not dead now, it's just my mind worrying about it happening in the future. And that when this happens, this appears to be an in-the-moment threat to the body, to your children. So we get a stress response in response to that. So it's really good to know this, that your heart's going to beat faster, you might feel a bit dizzy, you're going to get a shot of adrenaline, it's going to look and feel in the body like this thought that's occurred to you is something that really needs to be paid attention to, because it will create that anxious and worried feeling in the body. And we don't like that discomfort, we don't like that stress response. And so it looks like we need to sort out this issue and make sure it doesn't happen in order to not feel the stress response. But the stress response really is just there. It's a natural reaction to a stressful thought that looks like a threat to survival. So we've got the threat to survival thought, I might die young, and then we've got a stress response in the body. And that feels really uncomfortable. So that's the first thing to see. This is going to be perceived as a threat by our brain and by our body, even though it isn't real. The brain cannot tell the difference between an actual threat and a perceived threat. So that's also really good to know. The brain is also innocently creating the problem. So having the thought, what if I die young? How would they be able to cope? What's going to happen to them if I die young? And then through thought, and then it's also trying to create the solution through thought, which means, as you said, it means you're worrying and obsessing about your own health. How can I stop this happening? I need to be the healthiest that I can be. I need to ensure that I don't eat the wrong food. I must do exercise. And you end up incredibly stressing yourself out, innocently trying to look after your own health. But what I want you to see here, and is really helpful for all of us to see, I think, is that you've got your mind creating the problem in thought. So it's not happening now. We've got a what if this happens? And then we've got a response to it also in thought, I must then do this X, Y, and Z in order to look after my health. But none of it is happening now. So any time that you hear the what if question in your mind, you can know that it's not happening right now because it's happening in an imagined future. And so you don't need to pay attention to that because you can't solve it now. So yes, as parents, we can do as much as we can from a relaxed, wise, calm space to look after our health, anything that makes sense to us. But it doesn't have to come from this response to the panic. So the panic of, what the threat? What happens if I die young? They won't be able to cope. And then we've got the response to that is, I must look after myself. I must make sure I exercise. I must worry about this all of the time. I must be vigilant for symptoms in my own body. I must avoid places where I might pick up something that potentially could kill me. All of that goes, and that's more tension. So we've got tension here, tension there. And all of that tension is telling you you're believing something that isn't real, that isn't happening now, and that you can safely step back from it. So it's happening all in the mind. It's just a mind-created problem. And just because we think something, just because our mind pretends it's a crystal ball and can see into the future, it doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it true that it's going to happen. And it also doesn't mean that you can do something about this. Just because your mind has picked it up as something to worry about doesn't mean that you can actually have any influence over whether you're going to die young or not. No amount of worrying about it is actually going to change the outcome of whether you die young or not. So just listen to that again. No amount of worrying about it is going to change the outcome of whether you die young or not. Like, what if that is true? And what this is an example of, so I like to use the metaphor of it's like trying to cross the road before you're actually at the road. So we have the crossing of the road. So imagine that you're outside a busy road in the front of the nearest main road to your house. And you're standing at the main road and I say to you, right, I want you to tell me what time it's going to be safe between 12 and 12:15 next week. What time is it going to actually be safe for you to step out and cross the road next Wednesday at 12 and 12:15? Now, if I asked you that question, you said to me, Lindsay, how can I possibly know when it's going to be safe to step out on the road next week? I can't possibly know that. I don't know what traffic's going to be coming along. I don't know whether I'm going to be tired. I don't know whether there's going to be something passing through my vision, sun in my eyes. I don't know if it's going to be raining and I'd have poor visibility. I just don't know what the traffic's going to be, so I can't predict that. And this question is exactly that. It's a mind innocently picking up what can I do to prevent this? What can I do to keep us safe? And then trying to cross the road next Wednesday. And we simply can't do it. The only time that we can respond to something is in the moment. We're going to have wisdom, we're going to have common sense, we're going to have everything we need in the moment to know when to step out into the road. Just as your children would know what to do in the moment should you pass away in an untimely manner. And this is true of any issue or problem that our mind likes to what if about in the future. We can only know how to deal with it in the present moment, not ahead of time. We cannot prepare for it. And one of the things that's really helped me with this, apart from seeing through all of the mind-created fabrication of it and that I can't deal with it if it isn't happening now, is to really know that my son and every other single child, because every other single human being, he has resilience within him. That even if, God forbid, I did die young and he had to deal with that, and I'm not saying that wouldn't be a challenge in a child's life, I'm not saying that that wouldn't be traumatic, I'm not saying that wouldn't be really difficult for a child to handle, but I also know that he has inbuilt resilience just as your children have inbuilt resilience within them. And hopefully they would be surrounded by some loving, caring adults who'd also help them through it. But we are built at our core, we are built to deal with life, and your children, yes, they would have lots of grieving to go through, lots of different processes to go through, but they'd also still have joy and happiness and being okay. That's the truth of how it works, and it really helps me when I truly know that about my son, that he has resilience built in, because I also know I've got resilience built in, and I know you've got resilience built in. And the final thing that I'd like to say that has also been really helpful for me, and I hope will be helpful for any of you listening to this, is to know on a slightly more spiritual level, like, it's not up to us when we die. It doesn't seem to me that it's up to us when we die. So if we have it on our to-do list, as Jane innocently does, and I have in the past innocently had it on my to-do list, is keep myself alive so that my son's okay, so I can continue being a mother, or just generally keep myself alive is on my to-do list. It's going to look like I've got 1,000,001 things, ways in which I need to look after my health in order to do that, to try to prevent death from coming. But when we can pull back and really see, I don't think we've got any control over the moment that we die, as we don't really have any control over the moment when we're born. So there is a power, whatever you want to call it, the thing that's spinning the planets and makes babies grow and lets the trees know what season they're in, and, you know, holds all the solar system in place. It seems to me that that energy is the thing that decides the exact moment that people are born and the exact moment that people die. And I don't think any amount of worrying, thinking about, wondering about, worrying about in a human brain is going to change the time that we are meant to leave this earth, when we're meant to have our last breath. So what if the bigger picture is, Jane and anyone else listening, that you can take off of your to-do list that you need to keep yourself alive? What if it's not your job? How does that feel? Now, that might feel a bit scary, it might feel a bit like there's no control, but truly I don't think there is any control over it. And so, but if we believe we've got to do something, then we just end up exhausting ourselves and scrabbling around trying to do everything to keep ourselves healthy, which then puts more stress on the system, which actually is probably more likely to bring, ill health to the body than health to the body, than living in a relaxed state of just knowing that it's not on your to-do list. This massive thing of I've got to keep myself alive isn't your job. So I hope this has been helpful. Do let me know in any comments if there's anything that you'd like me to talk about this. Let me know if this has been helpful. And yeah, if you would like to ask me anything, then you can please do join my community, and then you'll see when I send the emails out about Ask Me Anything week. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye.